the vast majority of museums you go to, you're walking through, if it's an art exhibit, unless you're a very special person, there's not going to be I had one of those growing up.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a lot of nostalgia there. There's also, unless you know what you're looking at or somebody's telling you, there's not a lot of storyline in the same way as things that you grew up with.
Right.
So when you come into our quote museum, you'll actually, if you've lived at all, you will find something that you use.
Touched your lives.
And you'll either want to bring out a hammer or you'll want to embrace it.
Yeah. That's right.
And sometimes we have trouble telling what the emotions are when somebody's looking at it.
Are they upset or are they very happy?
But you do see the emotion.
Yeah.
And, you'll see several people congregate around a machine or around, a case, and they all start telling stories.
Yeah.
How many museums do you see that's the case?
Yeah, right.
It's just not. And they're really excited, and people want to tell their story.
A sincere thank you to Wellstar North Fulton Medical Center for its sponsorship and for fostering a healthy community where businesses can thrive.
Welcome back to Brew Talks. I'm Steve Stroud, President and CEO of Roswell Inc. We're the economic development organization here in the city of Roswell.
I'm Andy Williams, President and CEO of Visit Roswell, the city's destination marketing organization charged with promoting tourism throughout the community. And no better representation of that right here in front of us today. With the Mimms Museum of Technology and Art, formerly the Computer Museum of America. They are one of our staple attractions here in the community.
Absolutely.
Drawing attendees and patrons and customers and visitors from really all over the place, and still getting the word out about everything that they have to offer at the museum. And we're going to specifically get into a very special exhibit that has been quite an investment and really build out when you think about the 20,000 square feet that it encompasses. We're going to talk about Inspire 50 Years of Innovation from Apple. Lonnie, Karen Mimms, very excited to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. And so here's what we're going to do. So, before we get into the actual exhibit, we want to kind of set the tone and get the lay of the land on the actual museum itself. And we're going to talk about why museum, even though that's in the name, this isn't your traditional museum. We're not talking about 1800s artifacts by any means. We're not talking about a traditional, museum type experience. So we're going to kind of dispel the myth of what that means. But walk us through your background, why this is important, why you have all of these artifacts, and how that came to be with the fruition of the museum coming to be.
Well, I grew up in the Atlanta area in DeKalb County. And would take summer classes at Fernbank Science Center. And that was way before the Natural History Museum. And it was part of the DeKalb County system. And those classes, were just on every kind of thing you could think of in science. And when they offered the first class in computer programming, it was just normal to take it because I had taken most of the other ones. And, you get there and there's just this screen with a keyboard and this strange suction cup thing sitting next to it. And you dial this phone number and you stick it in. Very much sounds like a fax machine for those who remember fax machines. And the next thing you know is you're typing in your username, password, and you're communicating with some monster mainframe computer somewhere else in the world. And in my case, it was an IBM 360. And I was just hooked. You start playing games against it. You write programs to do things. It follows your instructions. I mean, back then in the early 70s, that was a really cool thing. And this was before the microprocessors came out. And I just kept on that same line and turned out, again, it's like stars align. My best friend's dad was a professor in civil engineering at Georgia Tech. Well, he was still using a slide rule, and he did some early engineering on MARTA before MARTA existed, all that kind of good stuff. But he had no idea what a computer was. But my best friend knew that he had a password and username to access the Georgia Tech mainframe, which really was a supercomputer at the time. It was a Cyber 74. And so I would go down there every Saturday with my best friend. Mom would drive us down like a 10-minute drive. And we would spend the entire Saturday at the Rich Computer Center and have lunch out of the candy machine. And it just kept going like that. And then when micros came out and they really got to where they weren't just hobbyist toys, convinced Dad that we need one in the real estate company, and that was in like 77.
How about
And
that?
so had a very early machine. This is even before the Apple II. And it was sitting on my desk in my bedroom.
Was it an Apple?
It was a Sol 20 from Processor Technology.
Oh, geez.
Which was actually a company that developed memory boards for one of the most famous personal computers, which was the Altair.
Okay.
That's the computer that inspired Bill Gates and Paul Allen.
That's right.
And they wrote BASIC for it, and that was the beginning of Microsoft. And interestingly, the guy that created that is a Georgia guy named Ed Roberts, and his 2 kids. He passed away 2010, but his 2 kids, his son and daughter, both came to our big grand opening of the Apple 50th.
That's way cool.
And, you know, back then you had to write all your own programs. And I mean, there weren't many things at all off the shelf. Even the spreadsheet hadn't come along yet. That wasn't until 79.
So you started collecting when? After high school or during high school? Or
well, it was probably the very beginning of high school.
Okay.
I mean, first I was interested in electronics.
Sure.
And ended up majoring in my hobby at Georgia Tech, electrical engineering. But, you know, and that was even before the computers. But it all, you know, there's a natural tie in there, obviously.
Sure.
But as people would throw things away, he would say, no, I'll take that. And so then slowly but surely he had a collection.
Yeah.
And then but it really wasn't until later, I would say after 9/11, when, you know, as a family, they're a very philanthropic family, and that's how he's been raised, to give back. And each of the brothers sort of did a self-evaluation to say, okay, what's going to be my legacy? How can I make a difference? And that's when he was like, okay, I've got this collection that really, it needs to come out of the basement or out of storage.
But it wasn't really a conscious thing.
Right.
I mean, this
Just
is all,
happened.
It's all
this
looking
is all
back.
just by looking backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
That everybody, you know, in their own way, just kind of woke up and said, okay, you know, am I going to keep doing the same old day to day, or am I going to do something to make a difference?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the footprint too, because, you know, at Mimms Museum, you've got these Cray supercomputers, and they're not small by any means. Have you just accrued these throughout that takes up a big footprint. So obviously you've had these stored somewhere, and it makes sense to have these in the museum now. But man, that's a big undertaking, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the first supercomputer I got, I mean, I never really intended on going after the bigger machines.
Okay.
My focus was always on the micros, because that's where I started, and that's, you know, that was much more manageable, even though they're still, you know, take up a lot of space. But I saw that Georgia Tech was getting rid of a entry level Cray computer at one point, and the transportation on the darn thing cost more than the machine itself.
No joke.
So that was the first one I got, which was an EL, was an entry level machine, big red thing, about the size of a refrigerator.
Yeah, it's huge.
With a big button on the front, you know, for panic, which is always funny.
Which is what everybody wants to push.
Yeah, right.
But then my real leap was, had a friend in Austin, Texas, who had a Cray 1 in his garage that he didn't know what to do with. He hadn't even uncrated it. The thing came from Germany, from the Max Planck Institute. And it was an original Cray 1. I mean, there's several versions of the Cray 1, but of the original one, there's only a little over a dozen of them that were ever made.
Whoa.
And as a kid, that was like this iconic, you know, fastest machine in the world for, you know, number of years.
The nickname's the world's most expensive love seat.
Love
Yeah,
Back then.
we know what it
With
looks
the bench around it.
So it was just one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, you know, and so he contacted me and says, okay, I'm ready to do something with this. And he said, I really want to trade it. And it's like, well, what do you want to trade it for? And he goes, an Apple One.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I think we can make that happen. So one of the Apple Ones that was in my collection was traded to get the Cray 1 that is on display in the museum.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Really cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's an important note too. So, okay. You know, you're not just getting these things locally. You've been all over the country. Have you even been internationally to bring these in?
Well, indirectly, internationally.
Okay.
Whenever we purchased Paul Allen's entire museum, the Living Computer Museum out of Seattle a couple of years ago, he had gone all over the world to put together the collection that was in that museum.
Jeez. Pretty amazing.
And part of the reason is that like IBM, for all their big iron, all their mainframes, in the United States, they had a policy of leasing. So everybody's leasing the machines. Well, overseas, they purchase them. So if you wanted to get one of the big IBM 360s or 370s or 7090s or any one of the numbers of IBMs that are big machines, you had to buy them from overseas, which was a incredible logistics issue. So some of the machines in the collection now are from Australia.
Oh,
we have some that are German machines, and they have German writing and German manuals. Some of the machines are from Sweden, and there's Swedish manuals that go with that.
It's amazing.
So they really are from all over the world.
Yeah.
But the biggest crate collection came from one collector.
Okay.
That was
right. The majority of them came from a passionate, just a cray nerd.
Wow.
And he happened to be a UPS pilot.
Okay. Okay.
So he was very senior, long retired now, but he would be able to fly into destinations at his picking when there happened to be something interesting there to pick up.
Interesting.
That helped.
But how many was it, like 7 semis that took to get here?
It was that one was that was either.
And we sent a film crew out there, and they filmed it.
Filmed
and they
it,
did
documented.
flyovers.
There's a couple collections that have taken 7 semis to get. One was coming across the country, which was mostly mini computers, which are still not small. They're racks. And then, of course, the Cray collection. And that one came from the Louisville, Kentucky area.
Okay.
And then the Living Computer Museum took 60 semis.
Wow.
To get
60.
here. Yeah, it was
From Seattle.
Daunting.
From
overwhelming.
Seattle in the winter.
No small feat.
In the winter.
small
So
feat.
we figured out how to do that with a combination of putting them on a train and then, getting them off the train and driving them here.
Getting them to
and
Roswell.
then he had to buy me an electric scooter because the warehouse
Just to
was
get
so
in and
big.
out.
I was
Oh, yeah.
like, I'm exhausted because the guys would be bringing it in, and
Yeah.
I'm like running, with them. And so we got an electric scooter.
We didn't have
help.
to pack them. That was
No,
that was
you
done
didn't
by
have to
the,
pack
the
'em. No,
Living
no.
Computer Museum people, but we did have to unpack them.
But that's another, misnomer that people don't realize how involved Lonnie and I are. Not as much in the day-to-day operations where Rena
Right.
and our staff do
Sure.
that, but when it comes to, Lonnie is the curator and the design and where things go and putting
look.
things and the look and just very involved.
Yep.
Because we don't want to just hand it over to someone. This is our passion. I come from an education background, so I see how important it is. I mean, you got started from going to a museum and that exposure. And if we don't expose, kids, but it really is everybody.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not just
Sure.
kids,
Yeah,
right?
We often have 3 generations coming in together: the grandparents, the parents, and the children, which is unusual for a museum because typically it's a niche. It's for kids or it's, for
Right.
adults. And, we call it teaching from top to bottom because the grandparents are talking about, like you said, the IBMs or the punch card machines.
Yeah. Right.
And then our generation, we're talking
That's
about
right.
Apple or
That's
IBM.
right.
And then the kids are all talking about AI or drones.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how upset some people get that items that they used are in a museum.
Really?
And they're like, that makes me feel so old. And I'm like, well, your 8-year-old has something that they're using right
That's
now.
right. Don't be
too.
there.
So
Yeah.
don't get upset.
Yeah,
It's
don't
like your
get
favorite
upset.
song that you've grown up with is now like on the classic rock station.
Right. It's
like,
happening
what
more and
happened?
more, too.
Right.
Well, and two, with Mimms Museum, I want to walk through what guests can expect because you got the artifacts, you've got the vintage arcade games that are interactive and people can actually play those. You've got the supercomputer displays. You've got how computers have impacted television and movies and,
Right.
and all the different Byte magazine cover displays, which are really cool as well. But I do want to talk about Inspire.
Inspire.
Because this is a
Amazing.
20,000 square foot build out with 2,000 artifacts, maybe a little bit more. It's incredible. If you haven't been, it's awesome. And I know this took a lot of time and investment. This is Inspire, 50 years of innovation from Apple.
Yes.
Walk us
Amazing.
through what that looks like because it is very well done. And it's really cool to see everything from, you go way back, but to me too, it's just as recent as like the original iPad or iPod Shuffle, and how we don't really use those anymore because everything's on your phone. But the evolution of everything and how it started to where we got here. Walk us through what that exhibit is.
Well, the main reason, we did the exhibit was in conjunction with Apple's 50th.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, we always knew that, Apple has a cult following, that was going to be a huge, really major exhibit, but what better time to do it then? Although it is like childbirth, had I known what it would have been like, it took everything we had.
Yeah, it was a big,
and we encountered issues
numerous.
that, you just can't, when you're renovating a house or renovating something, the things that we, ran into, from plumbing to everything else, but we did not give up and kept going because we knew how important this is.
That's
and we
right.
wanted to tell the whole story from the beginning, or even before the beginning, their childhood, both Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, all the way through to today, and how important that was.
How did they get there? It is amazing.
Yeah. And show the culture side. And what people continue to say is, I had no idea. I can't believe how big it is. How even when we had our black tie gala and had a lot of early Apple employees here and people who are at Apple now that came, were blown away.
Yep. Surprised.
Just shocked at, not just the stuff, because a lot of people can have the stuff. It's the significance.
Right.
It's the second check. It's the signed, Steve Jobs' first ad, handwritten.
Yeah.
The first handwritten, the wired Steve Wozniak's.
The first
the
controller
board.
card for the disc 2 and the first disc 2, serial number 1.
Well, and when it's the way it's told,
right?
It's the story,
right?
It's the way it's presented in the Inspire exhibit.
Right.
It's not just a bunch of stuff and you read the plaque. It takes you through the journey,
right?
And you feel like you're in it. Like where
5
were
Apple
we?
ones.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Lots of videos, interactive, so you can sit down and play some of these games. Mac Paint or Alice
on an original Mac,
right? But giving a tour, we have to keep pulling people, and we're like, there's so much more.
Oh, yeah.
Like they all think that the first room is like
It's
it,
yeah.
because it could be it,
and they got to keep going.
Yeah, I'm like, no, there are 9 sections.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Come on.
No, that's a good note.
And I tell everybody, you have to come back.
Yeah.
Like,
if you don't have enough time, you need to come
will.
back.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people, when they come in, they upgrade their ticket to a membership, which they can do that.
For the whole year.
They can turn it in and say, I'd like to apply this towards a membership, because they see, I'm going to definitely come back.
Yeah.
And now we've expanded into art. We've always had art.
Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Felt like that was critical. Why don't you talk about why we changed the name? And, it's been something in the making for years that we've been talking about. But
well, for me, art has always paralleled. As a little kid, I would also take art classes, and got in the paper once for a collage thing I did, and would consistently win the art, for the grade in school and things like that. And didn't really pursue it in doing it myself, but always loved art, especially the modern art. So have been collecting art, for almost as long.
Because a collector can't just collect one thing.
You gotta have multiple.
Unfortunately, it's dozens of things.
Yeah, right.
But and then at one point in time, I met Robert Tinney, who was the artist who he's kind of like the Norman Rockwell for computers.
Yeah.
And he did over 100 of the covers for Byte magazine, and it really did mesh with the modern art as well, because he had a very surrealistic style, and even brought in some kind of Escher-esque elements to a lot of his pieces. They would give him the theme, at least for the first, for several years. Byte magazine, they would have a theme each month. So it might be education. It might be on a particular computer language. It might be on AI. There's some very early issues that were on AI.
Wow.
When the public had no clue what that was.
Yeah.
By getting to know him, I actually hired him. He did 4 portraits one of each of my sons and then myself
cool.
in the past that are hanging in the house. And then he also sold me all of his original art that he had in his possession.
Yeah. Great.
So that's going to be our next art exhibit.
Okay.
Right now we still have the Salvador Dali, which they will go away at the end of this year. They'll go back into our storage. And then the next art exhibit will be on the Robert Tenney's.
That's pretty,
Okay.
But circling back to the name change, everyone that came in the door, they were like, I'm really confused. I don't understand. Computer Museum of America. Why do you have a space exhibit?
Gotcha.
Why do you have art? Why do you have a movie exhibit? Why do you have video games? I don't understand. And we said, well, we're really a technology museum.
That's right.
At the end of the day. And that's when our board said, look, we've got to change the name. We've been looking for names forever. Why do you think these drugs just put together a bunch of letters? You can't find a name today.
Right.
So they said, look, I know, Lonnie, you're against this. He was not for this.
Yeah.
He did not want it to be after him. He would prefer to be in the background. That's just how he is. And they said, look, this is your legacy. This would not be here without you.
It. That's right.
And the Louvre,
Yeah.
Most of these museums, all of them, they all started with someone
A person
who had a collection
That's right.
that they wanted to share with the world to make a difference.
Right.
So they wanted to incorporate technology and art. So they came up with Mimms Museum of Technology and Art. But once that sticks, we want to be the Mimms.
That's right.
Or the Mimms Museum for short. We really would love to get rid of the word museum, like we said before.
Right. Because you're more than that. Yeah.
I wish there was a good alternate for that.
Right.
But, the vast majority of museums you go to, you're walking through, if it's an art exhibit, unless you're a very special person, there's not going to be I had one of those growing up.
Right. Yeah.
There's
No
not
way.
there's not a lot of nostalgia there. There's also, unless you know what you're looking at or somebody's telling you, there's not a lot of storyline in the same way as things that you grew up with.
Right.
So when you come into our quote museum, you'll actually, if you've lived at all, you will find something that you use.
Touched your lives.
And you'll either want to bring out a hammer or you'll want to embrace it.
Yeah,
that's right.
And sometimes we have trouble telling what the emotions are when somebody's looking at it.
Are they upset or are they very happy?
But you do see the emotion.
Yeah.
And, you'll see several people congregate around a machine or around, a case, and they all start telling stories.
Yeah.
How many museums do you see that's the case?
Yeah, right.
It's just not. And they're really excited, and people want to tell their story.
Yeah.
They want to say,
they do. They want to tell their
used
story.
This, and this is what I did. Or they come in and they're like, I worked on this like Lonnie did. I worked on this machine, but I never got to see it because I'm in a terminal and it was in another
someplace
state.
else.
It was
and now they get to see
behind the closed,
wall.
air conditioned room somewhere.
That you couldn't get
Right.
to.
Yeah,
right.
Didn't have clearance.
Right.
Well, and on the note of, doing a little bit more than just being a museum too, you guys actually do a lot of programming. There's a lot of programming. You've got camps for kids, punch card demos. It runs the gamut.
Yep.
But highlight some of those things and to our viewers who are maybe interested in different opportunities rather than just a walkthrough paying general admission.
Right.
What does that look like?
You know what? There's constantly stuff going on.
Yeah.
People are really surprised when they go to our website or Facebook,
You got
Instagram.
very active.
There's lots going on. Friday night we had night mode where we leave the museum open from 5 to 9. We have the bar open, music's on. It's the same price as getting in, so there's no extra fee.
There were actually some dance performances.
Oh, wow.
on Friday night.
Atlanta Dance Center.
Nice.
We had them come in. So it's just a chance to pregame, to come before a date night, have a drink, walk around, enjoy the museum in a different setting. So we do that. We have, like you said, Typewriter Tom that comes in, punch card demos.
We have a recycle days.
Recycle days.
Yeah, we've got guest speakers that come in.
Yes, on the regular.
And then just as a venue, which we do have a large 10,000 foot venue that is available for renting. For
We've used it.
And classrooms and a big hallway.
It's great space.
So a lot of interesting spaces that can be rented. So through that, there's also a lot of events that are going on.
Yeah.
Right.
That you're bringing people to
right.
Roswell.
And some of them are open to the public. Like
Yeah.
once a month, the first weekend, it's like a mind, body, and spirit.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's open to the public.
Brand.
We've had other art,
That's so
That's
cool.
art
coming up
events.
soon, too.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Art events
I mean,
where
these are not
open.
our events.
No,
we're just
but
the
you're
venue,
just
but
hosting.
it's still gives you a broad
Mhm.
spectrum of things that are going on.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
What?
Well, on the private event note too, though,
Right.
that's an important note. Insight is held
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we have our annual. luncheon.
As far as you can do everything from weddings to bar mitzvahs to corporate events to family reunions, things of that nature.
Right.
Steve, you get 450 people.
Oh
in
yeah.
there.
Yep, we do.
Reception style and with a plated
Dinner.
seated lunch.
Right, and the
all that.
museum can be open
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be
There's
completely separate.
Yeah.
And now with the new Inspire exhibit, the last room is this enormous room. And
Yes.
there's an interactive
It's a
floor.
great
And we use
spot.
that as our dance floor. And
Yeah.
we rent that out,
Yep.
as a venue as well.
Yeah.
The huge LED walls, you can put
so fun.
your presentation up on that and use that as well. So
Great
it just
venue.
gives a lot of versatility to be able to, for companies to come off site,
That's right.
to be
Right.
inspired. If you are an artist, you go to an art museum.
Right.
Well, where
You
do
go
you go if you're technical or you're artistic?
Yeah. What's that look like?
And it touches so many genres.
Yes.
And, it's not just the nerds. People assume that it's just for the nerds.
No.
Let me
it's
tell
not.
you, we might as well close our doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
the 20% will come.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
For
the
sure.
80% like me that just want to see, like,
What's it
I
all
want to
about?
learn. I want to be
Well,
knowledgeable.
if you have a phone and you're glued to it, more than a couple hours a day, then you really are a nerd too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, the definition
everybody.
the definition to me has
It's
broadened
changed.
quite a bit.
Yes,
And-
it has.
And as far as like our title Inspire, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the reasons for that is that, a museum can be, any one of the museums could be inspiring,
Right.
but we would like to think that we are extremely relevant
Mhm.
because there isn't anything now really that comes out that is not a derivative from something that's happened in the past.
That's right.
And, kind of an extreme example of that might be you can come to our timeline and you can see an 1800 stereoscopic viewer
Oh wow.
where you look through these glasses at a
Mhm.
card that was put in at the end of it
Mhm.
and see a 3D image of
Yeah.
some ghost town out west or,
Yeah.
some scene or something. Actually, I have one of Bullock Hall, believe it or
Oh,
not,
Oh, no
really?
way.
from almost 100 years ago.
Okay, so wow, an image of Bullock Hall that's used,
100
and now
years
that's
ago.
evolved into these newer viewfinders, which are not new anymore, obviously.
Mhm.
Right.
what does that look like?
And then from there,
Yeah.
you think about it. You just take each one of those still images
Mm-hmm.
and you put a screen there, and then you can add sound, which
Mhm.
some of the Viewmasters even had sound
They
later
did.
on. And then guess what you have? You have a VR,
Mm-hmm.
or if you set it up a certain way, you have an AR. Where it would lay on top of
Yeah.
what you're actually seeing, to the point where
Just augmented reality.
Yeah, right.
when a technology's arrived, when Apple's starting to adopt it,
That's right.
because they're not usually the originators of anything. They usually take something and just polish it up and make it, they're looking for perfection and, something that is reliable and will work consistently. So, when Apple comes out with their VR, which now exists,
Right.
Which is the
you
Vision
know,
Pro.
Vision Pro, it's mainstream.
Mhm.
So you've just seen a product that originated well over 100 years ago in the 1800s.
Crazy.
And
Amazing.
now it's a fairly new Apple product. Well, can you guys come up with something? I mean, whenever you go in the museum, or anybody goes in the museum, some kid, they may be able to see something that existed 50, 25, 75 years ago,
Mhm.
That's
and
right.
go, you know what? Why don't we have this now?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Mhm.
make an app for it, or make a
Create
device
something.
for it.
Mhm.
So there's no reason. I think we're probably going to get to the point where we're going to see another iPod again.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, because they're taking the phones away in school,
Yeah.
but
So
the
they
kids
gotta
still want to have their music.
music. Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
seeing an opportunity to bring something back.
Well, and you said something. Schools. You guys
Yes.
get a lot of school groups
We
from
do
all
a
over the
ton
state,
of field trips every week.
even
and
out of
they-
state.
Yeah. We have people from all over coming because what's more relevant and what's tied to jobs?
Right.
You know,
all
all of
jobs.
this are tied to jobs. You show me one company that doesn't have some type of tech related. Everything's technology now.
Tech.
Even if it's graphic design.
That's right.
Or art or movies or, I mean, it really,
100%.
there's so many things. But they teach coding, they teach space, they teach about art. So it really is so well-rounded for these kids that even if you're not a techie, you know, there's so many different things that you're going to learn about that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's cool. You get the private schools, you get the public schools.
We've done a lot of homeschool, a lot of
homeschool stuff. I think that's great. Well, thank you both for coming on today. I mean, your dream is become a reality, and that passion for both of you is just it's evident, right? We see it in the community and we see it at the Mimms. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you walk through there what's going on. And you've got a great staff, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They are on it.
Yep. And one of our interns, Caroline, just came on as a full-time employee.
Right. Oh, cheers.
And just did an article on that. But let me just give another little plug. In September, we're doing another Pixel Putt. I think it's going to be
yes.
So instead of doing a golf tournament, because there are lots of golf tournaments, nothing against them. Got one. But we are family oriented. This is a family fundraiser so that you can bring the whole family out, or the company, you can sponsor a hole or just come and play.
That's neat.
There are a lot of businesses around that are supporting us, and to show your kids how to be philanthropic.
That's right.
It's an easy way to come and do it. And so we'd love to see y'all there in September. But look at our calendar. There's something, like I said, all
for
the
everybody
time going on. When you have people coming in town or just looking for something to do.
It's a great setup.
Perfect.
Well, as we always say, it's a great day to do business. It's a great day to go see the Mimms.
Yes.
That's right.